Hey everyone, it's Michael. I hope you're doing well today. I have one of my favorite game franchises to review right now. I've been on a ball lately. I finished San Andreas the weekend before Ray Liotta passed away. Started up Vice City the Sunday before he passed away. Finished up that recently. Did my reviews for both of those. And I've been playing The Lost and Damned on PS3. That's been really fun. I love Grand Theft Auto. But one in particular that I never beat, just like I had never beaten Vice City until I recently finished it for the first time ever. One that I've loved the world of and have not beaten, even though I've owned it forever on PlayStation 2, original Xbox, now I own the definitive edition of it. Grand Theft Auto 3, which came out in 2001. It takes place in 2001, unlike Vice City, taking place in the 80s, San Andreas taking place in the 90s. GTA 3 changed everything. Now, I know Driver had been doing the open world type of thing, but it hadn't done it the way Grand Theft Auto invented with this game, and I'm not going to lie to you. I do appreciate a lot of it. But I have my complaints, I have my problems, and that's probably what's going to set this review aside from a lot of other people. Of course, in 2001, I was maybe 7. Hadn't even heard of it. My first game was San Andreas. My cousin showed me that like 4 years after it had already come out and had been a big old smash hit and everything. Grand Theft Auto 3, I played and I tried my best years ago to beat it, just like I did with Vice City. And I'm going to tell you one thing. This game is some bullshit. Number one, it's hard as fuck. It's a really difficult game. Not constantly, but quite often I found myself getting stuck, even now. Even last night, I came back from vacation, and what I had found out the day I went to vacation when I was looking online at walkthroughs of just to see how far along I was, maybe how much I had left. I had like 5 missions left when I got ready to leave. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I should have finished that up the other night before I left. However, I tried my best when I got back last night to finish it fairly early. I'm going to tell you, those last 4 or 5 missions, they were difficult, man. Particularly the last 2. They were very, very difficult. Even though I knew what to do, because I watch people like the Jizzy on YouTube, who are GTA channel enthusiasts and whatever. I knew all the secrets and ideas and tips on what to do. Of course, I have to play this game with cheats, because I suck at GTA, I suck at video games in general, so I have to play these with cheats. Get over it. It made it more fun, made it a little bit more easy to help me. GTA 3 changed everything, though, because they used to have a top-down view on GTA 1, 2, and London. As an expansion pack, by the way. But for this game, they actually went full 3D world, and I want to tell you the earliest parts of my opinion on this movie, once I get past the plot. Essentially, the plot of this is a fellow named Claude, who, by the way, you didn't know his name when this game came out. You didn't find that out until GTA San Andreas, as far as I know. At the time, he was just called the GTA 3 guy. He looks cool. He wears a leather jacket, green pants. Anyway, he gets betrayed by a lady named Catalina, who is a Latina woman who is one of his kind of thief, criminal, sidekick people. She shoots him, leaves him for dead, and he gets arrested. He goes to prison, or is about to, after a court case that sends him to jail. And something happens. He and another fellow named 8-Ball get out. They get into another car, and they take off, and they leave. So once they're out of this place, they try to go back to a life of crime. 8-Ball, of course, builds bombs and stuff for cars. I love the 8-Ball character. 8-Ball is such a cool guy. I love the voice actor for him. And playing Liberty City Stories, I learned a lot about him there, and I really, really like that character just in general. Speaking of which, the GTA 3 landscape. I never had as much exposure to this because of the limitations of me not doing so well on the story. I played a ton of Liberty City Stories back on the PSP. I still own my copy. I love it to death. I got a PS2 copy about a year ago. I'm still planning on jumping into that at some point. Maybe not soon. I got so many games for my vacation to Tennessee recently, the last couple of days. Specifically, I really want to play a lot of that stuff and get into it. I'm currently playing Need for Speed Underground, the #1 original game, and I love it. It's so fucking good. Anyway, Grand Theft Auto 3, I finished it up last night. Finished the whole story for the first time ever. I've never finished this game. And it's kind of like one of the shorter ones. I know like Lost and Damned being DLC doesn't really count, but that one's fairly short itself. It has maybe 25 missions. I could be remembering that wrong. Maybe it's closer to 30. And Ballad of Gay Tony I remember being fairly short as well, also being DLC for GTA 4. But GTA 3 had like 47, 48 missions in total for the main storyline stuff, not including like phone calls and stuff on the side of the road. So it's fairly a simple story. It's fairly basic. Now, mind you, when you are looking back at this game, after the exposure to GTA that I've had, I've beaten San Andreas, Vice City, Liberty City Stories, not Vice City Stories, though. I really suck at that game. GTA 4, GTA 5, Lost and Damned, Ballad of Gay Tony, all these different games that I've played and beaten the shit out of and played so many hours into and loved so much. All of those things that I loved so deeply and have so much exposure to are so different from GTA 3. Most of my experience with this game really isn't this game. It's Liberty City Stories. I love the GTA Liberty City world from 3 that they used for Liberty City Stories on the PSP and PS2. I have most of my exposure to things like Shoreside Vale, which is the third island on this game out of the 3 islands you can get into. I had most of my exposure to that island. Many things that we're used to in the GTA formula are not the same in this old first 3D game, which is very hard to get used to. There are not many missions taking place on the third island. They kind of take place, but you have to like start the mission on island number 2, which I think is, Staten Island? Yeah. You have to start there and then drive all the way to Shoreside Vale and then do things on that third island. It's kind of bullshit. But starting out in Portland is the ultimate place to play in this game. It's so grungy, it's so dirty, it feels like a crime area, especially when it gets very rainy and foggy. The look of it is so fantastic. And I remember loving that about Liberty City Stories even more. And to finish that game many years ago, like 10 years ago, and love it as deeply as I do, even though I think Vice City Stories is better, GTA 3, finally completing this now, I feel like a giant weight that's been lingering over me forever is finally up. I finally finished this thing, and it's so different from a lot of these games. You're kind of doing the rags to riches story. I don't know what GTA 1, 2, and London are like. I never played them. But you also have the option, by the way, to do top-down view on this if you want to. Claude doesn't talk, which is... I'm not used to that. I'm used to like CJ and Nico and all the great ones like Trevor. I'm not used to a guy being completely silent. If he falls and gets hurt, he's like, oh, stuff like that. That's about it. But Claude himself, he's cool looking, he's tough, he's fun. I wish there was better weapons here, but I get why there's not. It's the first of the 3D games, and it, again, at the time, perfected what an open world, third-person game should be. Driving cars, stealing things, committing crimes, all that stuff. For what it was at its time, it's fantastic. It really is. For someone who is trying to get into it after playing like another 15 years or 20 years almost of GTA games, it makes me sit here and think, I have to be honest with myself, it's not as good as the other ones. For me personally, I'm very disappointed with the GTA 5 story. I'll still stand by that till the day I die. It's very weak compared to like GTA 4, San Andreas, Vice City. But I do think GTA 3 has a weaker story than GTA 5. And GTA 5 was at the bottom of my barrel for a long time. It's a beautiful game, but has a shit ton of just lazy writing, boring writing, just almost... Since Dan Houser is gone, almost like everything doesn't really fit together. The puzzle doesn't look like it fits. However, when I played this game... when this is really the first time they had ever, as far as I know, really tried to put a compelling narrative together with the kind of 3D open world. I know it had to have been impressive back in the day. I would have been impressed with this when I was a kid, if I had played it back then. But I'll tell you this, I don't think it aged as well as people think it did, and I think it has the same problem GTA 5 has with a very... It has its cast of characters. I like some of them. I don't like a lot of them. It's very, very difficult. As I said earlier, it's a very difficult game. But one of the other things that I have to complain about is that the ending just kind of ends. You don't really have a lot of build. Some characters are there and then they just disappear for the rest of the game. And I understand that happened with the GTA 1 and 2. I know that. Even with the top-down thing. That used to happen on those games. Here, that happens, and in hindsight, it sucks because of that. But at the time, I don't want to hold that against it because it was probably completely acceptable and cool, and people probably loved it and almost preferred it to everything else that had come before it. There are still people who still say that GTA 3 is their favorite GTA, which shocks me. But I get why, because of how much it changed the game. There are many things I want to talk about with this game too. This is probably going to be a lengthier review, which is fine. There are plenty of things I want to talk about that I think are worth mentioning when it comes to this. For one, the driving. I love it. All the cars feel very different from each other. If you have a sports car, you're going to fly. You're absolutely going to fly. And that can bite you in the ass sometimes. There are certain areas that you can drive on, like an interstate that has like a median that's not there. It's just open. And if you go over this median, you're going into the water, dude. And you can't swim in this game either. I can't tell you how many times a fucking cab driver or a cop car that decided to take a turn at the wrong time decided to knock my ass over in the water and kill me. I'm sure it happened to other people because it happens so frequently to me in this game, in the middle of missions even, that it pissed me off enough to just want to scream. I can't even tell you how many times I had to replay some of these missions, especially the last couple, to try to really get it down in pat. There's one particular mission where you have to go over each of the islands and look for these blue check marks on your map, which, by the way, there's no in-game map. You have it in the corner of your screen. There's nothing on the pause menu, which is such a bad idea. I don't even know how people could play this game back in the day. Maybe there was no room for it back in the day on the PS2 hardware. I don't know. But I will tell you, I cannot fathom how the fuck anyone thought it was a good idea not to have a map in the menu. I don't understand how they thought of that. It is completely shocking to me that anyone thought that was a good idea, because it made this game way more difficult. Now, I have a copy where I have a poster with the map on it. Not a big deal. But when you're trying to figure out certain things, it is a big deal. It is a pain sometimes. The game does not hold your hand. Let me tell you that as well. But the driving, back to the driving. I really like the steering on the cars. I think they all feel great. I love the sound effects for the cars and the guns and stuff. They all sound really good. Aiming and shooting with guns, if it's not a free gun, like a rifle or like a sniper rifle or a rocket launcher, if it's not something free like that, if I'm having to toss a grenade or toss a Molotov cocktail or anything, if you're using a pistol, any of that, I do not like the aiming setup thing where it basically puts it's kind of the four corners of a square box that you have to hold down the right R1 thing, aim at them just like you do in most old PS2 GTAs, and then you shoot with the circle. But the problem here is the same problem with Vice City. The camera is always your enemy. Your camera is always your enemy. You have to run in a massive half circle to turn your camera around so you can aim at the guy that you're shooting at without trying to shoot him from off screen if you're not using a free aim rifle. It's a pain in the ass, dude. It's a very big pain sometimes. But I had fun. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm complaining a lot about this game, but I had a lot of fun. A lot of fun. And most of that is because of the world here. Just because I don't think the story is very good. I think it's a very boring story, very bland story. Having Claude have no real personality, it's kind of a choice at the time, but, even now, I think it still kind of harms the story a little bit. You don't have much interaction. It mostly just becomes go do this, go do that, which was part of GTA 1 and 2 in London. And that's fine. Whatever. But the world itself is fantastic. And I do want to completely say that. It's the same GTA 5 syndrome. The world of it is beautiful. I love the setup. I love the design. I love how it's kind of like a little bit of a New York City, but also like its own thing across different areas. A little bit of a California type of thing in some parts, like in Shoreside Vale. I love it. I think it's absolutely a beautiful setup for an island. And that must be why in my brain, even though I like the story for Liberty City Stories more than GTA 3, the islands, the map that they use for both the games are just fantastic. Just absolutely fantastic. They're addictive, man, to play in. They're just fun. I love how in Shoreside Vale you have a lot of curvy roads that are just like 3 and 4 stacks of roads you have to turn left and right constantly on to get down safely. On top of that, I hate the fact that you can't swim. As I said earlier, I constantly wrecked, constantly went in the fucking water and then drowned during missions, which pissed me off so much. There is a portion later on in the game that I don't want to spoil too much, but at some point you piss off a lot of other gangs. There's like 7 gangs in this game, by the way. And at some point you piss pretty much everybody off. And if you're driving down pretty much any road, some clown is going to shoot at you with a shotgun, and they're probably going to destroy your car. They're probably going to blow your car up with like 2 or 3 shots of the shotgun. They shoot a lot faster than Claude does. I cannot tell you how many times I would be driving down the road doing a mission and have to avoid damage on my car and would get obliterated by shotguns. You have no idea until you play this game, and you get later on in the game when that portion of the game starts. You have no idea how frustrating that was. It is so frustrating, you have no idea. However, when I finished it, I felt great. I felt like that 20-year feel of this lingering over me for so long. I feel like it really finally removed itself now that I beat it. It's like beating your fears, you know? It was so much fun. I loved it. I love the setups once again of the island. I think the sound effects are really great, especially for the cars. I wish there was more guns, but I get why there's not. There would be a lot more options, but, you know, it is what it is. Vice City really made up for that. San Andreas even more so made up for that, because there's so many options of different types of guns you can get in both of those games. Now, I will say this, the radio. I'm a big fan of GTA Radio, specifically with Vice City Stories, Liberty City Stories, sorta, kinda. I don't know. I don't remember too well about that, but I think I did. And San Andreas, GTA 4, all of them had phenomenal soundtracks. Lost and Damned and Ballad of Gay Tony, even better. Some of the best, up there with San Andreas and Vice City. And yet, when I played GTA 3, I had to feel, at times, like the only station I actually liked, I think there was one called The Mix, which is kind of a hip-hoppy type of thing. There was one that was kind of electro, I don't remember what it was. But then there was a flashback station, which is an 80s throwback. And I'm not bullshitting you. I think the flashback station has maybe 2 songs on the entire soundtrack, I believe. That was so weird to me. Because when I've played Vice City Stories, when I've played Vice City, when I've played San Andreas, you will have at least like 20, like sometimes 15 songs on each radio station. And it just went on and on and on. It shocked me, right? Speaking of radio stations too, there's one called Chatterbox. Everybody loves it. I don't know why. I tried to listen to it, tried to get into it, just couldn't do it after a while. That was also in the portion of the game where I was being shot at all the time, so maybe I was just stressed. I don't know. But I will say this. I really was surprised when I went to look on the GTA 3 IMDb page for this review, because I noticed a lot of names that I knew. So, for example, you have Kyle MacLachlan, who plays Donald Love on Chatterbox. Well, I think he plays 2 characters, but still. Frank Vincent plays Salvatore Leone. Michael Madsen plays Tony Cipriani. And I don't know if he came back for Vice City Story or Liberty City Stories. I don't know, but I loved him. Michael Rappaport is in this, bro. Michael Rappaport is in this playing Joey Leone. I couldn't believe it, dude. I was kind of shocked to see all these big names. I knew you had like Sam Jackson playing Tenpenny in San Andreas. I knew you had my boy Ray Liotta playing Tommy Vercetti, one of the greatest characters of all time, in Vice City. I knew we had a lot of great names out there, but man, it kind of just shocked me to find out that all these guys were in this game that I never could beat, because I would have appreciated it even more. And not knowing they were in the game, as I played through this time and finally finished it, still kind of shocked me. Looking at this IMDb page, it makes me appreciate this even more. There's clearly a budget, clearly a care to bring in a lot of people who wanted to do something very special. Rockstar changed the landscape of video games at the time that this was made. You've had copycat after copycat. Driver 3 tried to be more just like this. True Crime came out, trying to be like Vice City and San Andreas. You had so many games that wanted to be GTA when this game came out. It clearly matters in history of video games. I do want to specify, it clearly matters big time. But when it comes to the story, I'm very, very, very underwhelmed. I'm very disappointed with the story, I have to admit. I was hoping for bigger twists, even though I kind of had the final ending, a little ruined for me. However, it made me feel better after the things I dealt with in San Andreas with a particular character. Claude is great. As I said, I wish the radio was better, but again, it was GTA 3, dude. How much better could it possibly be? This was like the first time they had used licensed music, I think. I don't think they had it for GTA 2 and 1. But this one was so solid. When it comes to the world design and all that, I just loved it. You can't fly planes in here, which is also weird. The aiming system is a little clunky. Like I said, I'm not really a fan of that. I'm curious if the Definitive Edition improved that. I heard it did, but I also heard that people hate it. I haven't played this one in Definitive Edition yet, but I want to at some point. Anyway, I'm really happy I finally finished this and Vice City for the first time ever. They're done. I can say I finally beat them. It's probably not a big achievement to a lot of hardcore gamers, but I myself, who have taken breaks from games for a very long time, to come back and to finally beat something that has kicked my ass forever is such a great feeling. You have no idea. Maybe you do. I don't know. I really like a lot about GTA 3. Do I recommend it to modern, younger gamers that love GTA 5, GTA 4, Lost and Damned, Ballad of Gay Tony, even if you like San Andreas and not Vice City, or even if you like Vice City? Do I recommend this? Do I think it's as good or as fun as those games? Hell no. Hell no, absolutely not. I think the story, again, of Liberty City Stories is much better. I think I'd almost recommend that if you can get a copy of it, but it's so hard to find a copy of that game right now. It's very scalped, whatever, right now. Anyway, Grand Theft Auto 3 is definitely above average, and even back in the day, if I had played it when it first came out, I'd probably say it was a perfect game. I don't know. Games have changed so much. Stories, narratives, all that have changed so much over the years. It's kind of hard to figure out where I stand on that. But in hindsight, from a big fan of GTA, I think it's a weaker game than a lot of them, but the world is magnificent, and in some ways, I'm going to say something very controversial here. In some ways, I think I like the world of this game better than GTA 5's Los Santos. I know, it's weird to say that. 20-year difference, well, sort of, kind of. Not really, but sort of. Closer to a 12-year difference, 15, somewhere in that ballpark. Because GTA 5 came out in what, 2013? 2014? 2013, I think. With that game coming out when it did, how much this series had changed from this point to that point is amazing. But that world there, it feels empty. It feels not alive. And I feel like the stress of worrying about getting slaughtered on the street in this game is way more worrisome and way more fun than something like GTA 5's world. And that's just my personal opinion. I think the detailing and everything, the graphics and all that of GTA 5 are magnificent. I've played it both on Xbox 360, where I played the whole story, and I played it on PS4, where I loved it also for the graphics and updates when it came to new gen, or next gen at the time. That's a great, solid game, but I think that story is a little bit better than here, but I think I like this whole map of all 3 islands better than all of Los Santos in 5. I just think it has so much more live to it, or life, whatever. I think that the design of the map, like the one particular interstate you have to take to get to Shoreside Vale, it's like a curly bridge, basically. You have to take a big old loop to get up on an actual interstate bridge. It's kind of like the Golden Gate Bridge a little bit, but not really. It's kind of like that, and the whole middle portion of this bridge lifts up and down while it dings a bell at you. And I didn't remember that until I started playing this and got to Shoreside Vale on that 3rd island. Didn't even remember it doing that in the PS2 or the PSP Liberty City Stories game, which shocked me. I forgot that happened. There's just so many great throwbacks to this, and I can't tell you that I highly recommend it. If you're a big GTA fan, I would recommend it to you. If you're not a big GTA fan or a big video game fan in general, why would you even be listening to this? But if you're not a big GTA fan, this is probably not for you. But if you like more simplistic stories or you like the play of 1 and 2, 3 might be for you. 3 has that top-down view option where you can play like GTA 1 and 2. So you might like it for that. I don't know. I don't know. It was abandoned after this game. So I'm not sure what to recommend to you. But I will tell you, if you haven't played this game before, again, it kind of starts off mostly easy, and then it gets a couple of missions to the end of the first island, and from that point on, a lot of this stuff is extremely difficult, and I mean that. I had a tough time, but I'm glad I stuck through it and kind of learned and had to think while I played it. It kind of shows how a lot of modern games kind of hold your hand through everything, including GTA's modern games. But still, GTA 3, the 2001 release, changed everything. What do you guys think about this game? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Is it one of your favorites? Would you put it in like your top 5 GTA games? For me, absolutely not. I think the story is the weakest of all of them pretty much. But I also think that the world itself is one of the best, one of the most iconic. And it's hard to say that I love Liberty City Stories more when I know the world and the map that I love from that game, and the story focused around that, came from this game. It's so weird to me. Anyway, I really enjoyed my time with it, even though I think it's a very weak game when it comes to story narrative, when it comes to a lot of things, like the radio, and the shooting, the aiming system. Even though I think it's very flawed in those regards, even for its time, I do think that there is a lot to be said about how powerful this game is, how fun it is. It's especially fun. I had a great time. I love that gloomy, edgelord atmosphere to it. Claude's design looks really good. There's a lot of really funny jokes, by the way, that I really love about this, particularly when you're in that one main New York City area and you're looking up at the streets and the signs on the cities and the restaurants and all that, like Burger Shot. Some of the signs are so funny. For example, they have a parody of Annie, the old shitty-ass play that I refused to watch the movie adaptations of, the one they remade with Jamie Foxx not too long ago, to get woke points. They have one advertisement in here on the wall for like a theater thing. It's called Fanny. I saw that for the first time last night. I've been playing this game off and on forever trying to beat it for like 10 years, 15 years. I've never seen that cover or that joke. I've never seen anybody point it out. So it just goes to show how much more fun to me personally, and how much more clever the old GTAs were compared to the newer ones. That's just my opinion personally, even though I love GTA 4. But the parody stuff in here of American culture and whatever are great. I love it. It's very good, and I think this one probably started it compared to GTA 1 and 2, but it probably started that whole ball rolling of the parody of the American society with things like the different restaurants, like Burger Shot being Burger King and that kind of thing. Anyway, what did you think about GTA 3? If you played it and beat it, put all your thoughts and comments down below, folks. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this wild little ride of a game. Anyway, thank you for watching so much, and, well, that was a weird way of putting that, but you know what I mean. God bless you guys. What was your favorite car, by the way, that you drove in this game? I can never get used to how different the Infernus was from GTA Vice City Stories. I prefer that one a lot more. I like the sleek, Wraith movie-like design of this, but I think my favorite car in this game, it's probably going to be that one. There's a particular gang car. It's like a black, not a Banshee, but it's, I can't remember what it was called, but it's like a muscle car. It has like flames down the side. It's black with red and orange flames down the side. It's beautiful. It has the engine sticking out of the top of the hood. Love that car. Probably my favorite in the entire game. However, there's also another car. I think it's for the gang called the Yardies. I could be wrong. It's like a kind of a burgundy car with like a golden top, and it has hydraulics. And when you hit the L3 button, your hydraulics will shoot up and you'll be able to drive like a really tall car. It's freaking sick. I loved it. You know, I don't think I ever had the option in this game, now that I think about it, to drive a tank. I met Phil Cassidy in the game, yes, from Vice City, and I don't think I ever got to drive the tank around. I saw it. It was sitting right there, but I don't think I got to play with that thing. Was there a mission in this game that you played with a tank? I don't think there was. Anyway, it started off the series, really, so I kind of get why they didn't include that. But I think you can use the tank, and the tank was pretty badass, if I'm remembering correctly. Anyway, what are your thoughts on GTA 3? Put your thoughts and comments down below. I would love to hear more people talk about this game and what their thoughts are on GTA 3. I can't wait at some point to sit down and play the definitive edition because it's beautiful. In my opinion, it's just absolutely beautiful. It looks like nothing else. It looks like such a great improvement on a game that has so many flaws to me. Do you think there's a possibility that they lost songs for that? I know that like San Andreas, they couldn't get the copyright to certain songs. They had to cut them out of the radio stations, which kind of sucks. For pretty much every release after PS2 and whatever other console, Xbox, I think, that had a release. I'm curious if GTA 3 had to do that too. Anyway, I'm glad that the games got even better with the next year's release, Vice City. In 1 year, they had that next game out, Vice City, which is a classic. Most people can just compare that it's perfect. It's a perfect game, pretty much. Story has a little bit of problem here and there, but for the most part, it's pretty much perfect. To go from this kind of slightly flawed, even for its time, in my personal opinion, game to go into Vice City, that's a massive achievement for a company, in my personal opinion. It's kind of like what people said about Fallout 3 going to New Vegas and how much they like New Vegas compared to Fallout 3 even more. Anyway, what are your thoughts? Put them down below. Thank you for watching, guys. I'm so glad that I finally beat this shit. It's like a whole wait that just made my whole vacation and weekend better now that I'm home. Anyway, thank you guys. God bless you, and goodbye.